Long COVID research is slow, but it's moving. You need to know the latest, and that's what we're going to go over today. Welcome back to Long COVID MD. I'm Dr. Zeist Khan. I'm a licensed physician with Long COVID. And on this podcast, we talk about medical treatments that you might want to consider, how to live with a new disability, and we discuss the emerging science of this disorder. And that's what we're going to talk about today. Last week, RECOVER-TLC held its second annual workshop on the direction of long COVID research. I'm going to explain the key takeaways of that conference, which is quite important to the chances of us finding a cure. So why does RECOVER-TLC matter to you? Because RECOVER is the NIH's massive research program aimed at determining what causes long COVID, how to treat long COVID, and how to prevent it. The TLC part, which stands for treating long COVID, is where the actual therapies get tested. The workshop took place in Bethesda, Maryland, and it was streamed live for people who couldn't attend in person. Now, I didn't watch every session live. We had some unexpected events happen in our household. You can read a little bit more about that on the Substack newsletter. But I did watch key points, and I wanted to share my first impressions. If you want to watch the entire workshop, it's actually already available live on the FNIH's website, and I'll explain what the FNIH is. So this year's workshop was hosted by the NIH, the National Institutes of Health, and it was supported by the Foundation for the National Institutes of Health. The FNIH is a nonprofit organization whose job it is to combine the forces of government agencies and the private sector. It's also supported by NIAID, the National Institutes of Allergy and Infectious Disease. There were quite a few representatives from NIAID, which makes sense because long COVID is a serious infectious disease disorder, and there was a lot of discussion or comparisons to HIV, at least in terms of the timeline of research and the speed at which we're able to find treatments. The goal of the workshop was to bring together scientists, executives, clinicians, and people with lived experience, either as patients or as caregivers, to talk about what we've learned so far about long COVID, what treatments are going to be most heavily funded by RECOVER-TLC, and the direction that research needs to take in the future. One of the highlights of the workshop was the discussion about 4 interventions that are going to be prioritized for funding and research moving forward. These are low-dose naltrexone, baricitinib, GLP-1 or GIP receptor agonists like Ozempic and tirzepatide, and a procedure called a stellate ganglion block. All of these interventions are already being used off-label to treat long COVID with varying results. Honestly, there has not been enough standardization in the prescription of these treatments and how we study the results of people who've received them. There are certainly research studies that have been published, but so far these research studies have been small and most have not been supported by big established institutions. And we have to be honest, that's pretty important when it comes to validating the safety and the efficacy of any of these treatments and ultimately getting FDA approval for treatment for long COVID. So I think these are a reasonable list of items to fund and prioritize going forward because they're already on the market. They've already been studied. We already know a lot about their mechanisms and their safety profile. And importantly, all of these medications or interventions have been used in children. And it sounds like, at least for the low-dose naltrexone studies, that adolescent populations are going to be prioritized as well. This is super important because this is a population that often has absolutely no interventions or treatments available to them. But not everybody agrees that this is the right list, and some people are really disappointed that these are where the funding is going to be spent, at least for now. They argue for similar reasons to mine that they are already available. People have already been using them. They don't work consistently across the board, and we should be spending money and spending attention developing novel therapeutics for long COVID or working on combined medication studies. That is, testing people on multiple treatments at once. I think it's a reasonable argument and a valid concern, but I think there's a big assumption underlying it that somehow these medications have been prescribed equivalently, and this assumption that, quote unquote, everybody's already used it. These medicines are not accessible and available to most people because you've got to have a physician or a prescriber who's willing to write a prescription for you, and then you've got to be able to afford it. Many of these medications, unless you get approved for another clinical indication, are accessed by paying for them out of pocket, and that's just not available to everyone. What we ultimately want is these medications, if they are effective for even some or most people with long COVID, to be approved for that specific indication, approved for long COVID. We want FDA approval for medications that will actually make it more possible for prescribers to feel confident prescribing these medications, and for insurance providers here in the US to cover them so people can actually access them. The way we're going to get FDA approval, or at least the chances of us getting FDA approval, is through studies that demonstrate efficacy, that clarify the indications, and these kinds of things are more likely to happen when the research is supported at a big scale with established institutions and has support from federal health agencies. So I do think it's reasonable that these 4 medications or interventions should be tested in a standardized and formal fashion. I do also wish that this research had already been done, and that we were doing this more quickly. So it is a complicated question and it's a complicated topic, but I do think that we need this specific research to be done. By the way, if you're interested in learning more about how to use or why you might want to try low-dose naltrexone for long COVID with an explanation on how it works in a way that you can understand and which symptoms of long COVID it might benefit, then please check out my Substack and my podcast episode on this topic. I explain all of that, and I provide a printable that has a summary of all of that information too. While you're there, make sure you subscribe so that you don't miss out on future newsletters that will explain the mechanisms of all of the other medications too. In addition to reviewing the interventions that are going to be studied in the future, one of the remarkable things about the RECOVER-TLC workshop was the way we were able to hear other patient voices. There were people with lived experience included on every panel discussion, and at least it seemed like the leaders of RECOVER and RECOVER-TLC were really open to hearing feedback from this really important group. In addition to having public Q&A sessions after every panel, both from the live audience and the online attendees, there were town hall style sessions each day where leaders of RECOVER and RECOVER-TLC opened themselves up to answering questions that were really tough from the audience. The topics were not easy, like the real slow speed of research and how we can speed things up, how we can get this evolving science and new information into the ears and hands of providers who are on the front line and are the biggest gatekeepers to patients getting some relief. Right now, I don't think we're doing a great job educating healthcare providers on how to spot long COVID and how to treat it. I also think not enough people understand the experience of long COVID, which is why it was so refreshing to hear stories from other patients describing how their lives have been changed by this disease. Of the many voices that spoke, I was really touched by the words of a professional cellist with long COVID who talked about his experience, the way his career was disrupted, the way his livelihood and passion was disrupted by long COVID, and the real experience of navigating all the challenges that long COVID brings. We also heard from Serena, a young teenager with long COVID who's been suffering the last several years. Again, this is a really special and important demographic of people who are being kind of left behind among a group of us with long COVID who in general are being left behind. She was really brave, really courageous, just like all of the other long COVID patients were. And I know from personal experience how difficult it is to talk openly and publicly about having this disease. I think hearing these perspectives humanizes the condition for researchers and clinicians, and I really appreciate that the organizers made sure to include these patient voices. I will also give credit to patients themselves because another takeaway from the workshop that I got was, wow, people with long COVID are so tenacious, so ambitious, and just nipping at the right ankles to make sure that people are held accountable and this research moves forward with patient input. It is a full-time job to recover from something like this, and I know it takes a lot of extra effort and energy to both juggle your own health and community organization and advocacy. So those are my first impressions of RECOVER-TLC 2025. It was the second annual workshop. It will probably, hopefully, continue going forward. Big points was that there are 4 interventions that are going to be prioritized for study. I will keep you posted on research that comes out as it comes out. Subscribe so that you don't miss any of that. It's really hard to keep track of so many different things when you have long COVID. My goal here at Long COVID MD is to curate that information and make sure you know exactly what you need to know. The other big point was that patients are super important to this process, and the NIH and FNIH seem really open and willing to receive that feedback. I'm going to be bringing you more in-depth conversations soon, in particular focusing on all of these interventions and even talking to people who are involved in the research of them. If you want to follow along, then subscribe to the newsletter. I hope you're doing really well, and bye for now.